Dashidele to everyone following on the live stream and long life.
We'll begin today's question and answer session with the first question. How can we avoid negative emotions in the face of a foreign invasion and not rejoice in the death of enemies? It is very difficult not to be happy when the enemy's tank is burnt.
Oh, they come that the two part of the leg, young Yori, Rang Giacomo, less a leg, Jizzy, anything, Jelly, the deputy, don't want to have not on a song. Later, change my trip at an injecting how can you on my later Sunday. Oh, die. Vajrasattva, among the Song Talks of Jaraga, among some talks of the Cheddar race, Rangek on the Mareti, Maja, Tupatita, Maja, Legace, Shara Tami Yamsani, Tabatogores, or Chadi, Pinning a shower ladies, or Title Samoton, the Rangati, Jetty to Mateti, the Indo, Dagi, and something to marriage, Rana Sosor and the Jakate, among the Song Talk, the losses on which Song Talk losses on the Tinder.
So generally all wars happen due to karma accumulated in past lives. It is said that the cause is negative karma, the conditions are negative karma and obscurations. The conditions are the various hindrances and obstructors and evil spirits, and the results are suffering, illness, and so forth. So if karma is not created, then nothing in this world can ever happen. When you fight in a war, you should think that I'm doing this in order to protect the people. And it's not for some kind of personal reason. And with that kind of state of mind, you can continue to defend your country and continue to fight in the war as before. But then also think that all of those who lose their lives in that war, may all of them attain liberation. And everything that happens due to karma. And then supplicate to Tara single-pointedly. And don't at all think about self and other. And just think that when you defend the country, and I'm doing this for the people, not for myself. And so if you, even if you die, think that if I die, I'm dying for the sake of others, and in order to protect others, in order to benefit sentient beings. So this is how one should die.
Next question. How do we do the Jungchok burning away afflictions practice by ourselves?
마셔 사대를 watch 좀 셔라도 비주 가래 셔네요. 탐체데 다 타고 셔고 레게 셔고 셔먹고 와서 그 까트고 말 셔고 참마시 좀 보서 이제 셔야 고차고 줘도 그래서 셔성체에 타바토바 줘서 누가 이제 빠지 좀디 책이 되지고 좀네 손고가 말아 삼살로 소리나 미만은 삼살로 되는 뒤는 책이 좀 노들이 너는 까들이 누가로서 이제 빠지 좀은 창디를 했지.
And there's no one on this earth, on this world, who is born and who doesn't have to die. Everyone has to die. And think that everyone who dies, when you engage in this practice, may they attain the state of liberation. And when we die, it is because of karma, therefore we cannot actually prevent death. So when you practice the Jungchok, then pray for the well-being of those who are alive and for the liberation of those who have passed away. And also you can actually just recite the verses to Tara, who protects from the 8 fears. And within that there is 2 lines that actually encompass everything. And so these 2 lines are she who closes the doors to the lower realms and she who guides on the path to the higher realms. Everything is actually included within these words. So you can just pray to Tara in this way.
Next question. I used to have lucid dreams in which I could feel my emotions, see colors, and at times even recognize that I was dreaming. Now I no longer have such clear dreams and practice detachment from the current state. Does this mean my meditation has become dull or deteriorated?
Ini samsang milam yeba hakogodok ina tengsan ko tsam shoson ini milam yeba hakogom shira hakogom do sebom dos adi tengsan ati sak chakpa meba kom yestela ina yang ti milam mos yedi meba chasonga ini ti nga sem kom kya yati man yam songe
ya maso chedang milam musum kana simban jina pa che on dubar chena namdasi kareina dimban ya yo mar jumata beret 돈은 매일 해야 요말 샘데 양을 잡고 생각 많은 이 성수부 각질 과자는 샘콜을 치셔요 말이 체디서도 좀바람 좀 왔죠 직발에서 니디지 이거만은 돈은 내발만이 봐야요 말람 삶사들한 게 강글 감 짜다 차들어서 오는 것들이 삶사 요래 제 사원을 가초 말이 약고는 감성이 말 도고죠 봐야요 좀 왔다 말람이 봐야 뚝받치 땅다 거리지
So it's not that your meditation has declined, but what it is said that whatever you hold to be true, whether it is a dream or the waking state when you're during the daytime, whatever you hold to be true and real will lead to obstacles, and therefore do not hold anything to be true. So the mind is always the same, whether you are in a dream or you have passed away or in the waking state. And after the body has passed away, the mind continues on, either to the Pure Lands or anywhere into the 3 lower realms. but the mind is not going to die. So whatever it is, whether it is your life experiences or your dream experiences, see them as illusions and don't hold them to be true. Just let it all be. Sometimes it is just because of our physical disposition and blood flow and the channels and so forth that we have all kinds of perceptions. And sometimes the perceptions are very clear. And if they're clear, don't be happy about it. And if they are unclear, don't be upset or sad about it. Just no matter how it is, just let it all be. And view the dream experience and the waking state experience during the daytime as exactly the same. And all compounded phenomena are impermanent.
Next question. How should new practitioners view ritual instruments and other visual elements when they don't understand the significance? How should we place our minds during practice if we get confused about this?
로봇이 신랑 야가 요래 같이 신랑 초도 로모 르트 줘봐도 탑다 시랍 이지 얘들은 자 작동지 자지 강용들이 자지 제가 레스 잡아지 자 자지 요미 그냥 제요 최탐제 요다 메니가 말이지 어미다 지금은 이제 나그 신랑 같이 신랑 배주동 메시아 신랑이 샘데 싸와도 또 많이 아니 이제 검작 내잖아 죽어요 신랑 같이 신랑 배주도 소난 거 소사그 요래 럽네 야가 요래 소난 거 소저거래.
So if you know about the significance of all these instruments and articles, then that's good. The more you know, the better it is, and the more merit you accumulate. But also, if not, basically all the instruments really represent the union of method and wisdom, or in terms of sound, the union of sound and emptiness. And when you think about where does the sound come from, what is sound? Sound neither exists nor does it not exist. And that shows the nature of all phenomena. They don't exist and they do not exist. So they are that is the view of the middle way. Neither existence nor non-existence. So however much you know, you use this knowledge. And if you do not know about something, you just meditate in the clear and empty mind. So then you can just meditate, and that is actually enough. If you know, the more you know, the better it is, the more merit you will accumulate. So it's good to learn about it.
Next question. How can we practice the bodhisattva conduct while being realistic about our ability to help others?
강 첩첩 진시 봐요. 내 사제 좀 강제 돈이 있어 봐요. 봐요 저는 이는 신진설 쪽이 사람들이 다보지 사바체미지 오사람들이 사바체미지 봐도 오더라 자라 가리는들이 봐요 사와 탐제 사족 심차대요. 밤에 사와 탐제들이 다 밤에 봐들이 채는 박차죠. 그래 봐요 사와 대는 들이 그 시스템이 남지기 진우지 방지 비지 접조요래 배는 대하고 대시 봐요 계시 보요래 대시 봐요 대 저도 뭐들이 남지기 좁아 봐요 연거래 대시 배를 가리는들이 염 뒤를 하면 잡아서 난그 대시당 염치 뭐 제대로 뭐 열매 발이 라마산지 라마다나지 사지는 저 인지 발 때리 난 시합들이 난그 라마테리 대시 요래 요거第三제 요 대시면은 요第3제
So most important is to be mindful and aware at any moment as much as you can. Because the Buddha had said, what is emptiness is actually heedfulness, conscientiousness. So if you're mindful, then you will not disturb the minds of others. You will be straightforward and honest, and you will cultivate love and compassion. So if you're mindful, then all of your activities will naturally become bodhisattva activities. But if you're unmindful, then you are actually placing karmic imprints into your mind. And if you're mindful, then just naturally you will avoid harming others and you will accomplish the benefit of others. So mindfulness, heedfulness are really most important to maintain that on an ongoing basis. And then just naturally you will engage in bodhisattva activity. And so this mindfulness is, like in the Tara prayer, the mother goddess of mindfulness that protects beings. And that mother goddess of mindfulness and your own mindfulness are one and the same. Or the guru's mind, the Buddha's mind, your own mind are one and the same. The inner guru is your own clear awareness, your wisdom. If you are mindful, all qualities arise from that. If you are unmindful, all faults arise from that.
This is something Jala Tabjila Samato Chili, Tilgori, the Payo, the Yung, Sabakani, Socha Zumandula, Socha Munichina, or Socha Zumantan Hingachina, was the something, Yudi, then a Sabat imitation or the Payo.
And then if you're not mindful, then you will be very gentle in your activities, for example, and even you're very gentle with objects, material objects, on an ongoing basis. So if you're mindful, all qualities arise from that. Or when you just see a little insect, like a little animal and so on, like you will immediately feel compassion for them because you're mindful. You won't step on it, but you will see it and cultivate compassion for it. So you can see that many qualities arise from mindfulness. So if you're always mindful, then naturally you will develop this mind of immeasurable love.
Next question. Is non-duality the same as emptiness?
Oh, ni se me de. Dongba ni ge, ta so dongba ni shi ba de. Ni zui ta jian de zhe dong ni de din ren pan ne, ha guo tu zhe yin. Dong da da ji ni yu ne, me ni yu ne. Zhe ge ni xin ni ka ka ren de, ni ge ni ka ka ren sheng dong ni dong ne. Oh, me ni ne, zhou ni ne me, xin de zhe ba de, se ge ne lu dong li ta zhe ge. Oh, xin ni me le ha guo le. 我说的身体呢，上级身体呢，身为人呢，就把这些哈过这到哈过的呢，身为你用嘛嘞，爸爸都把你家那么呢，人都把的这个这到哈过过来的，这你是没办法的。
So we always speak about emptiness, and so when we say that the universe and all beings are compounded phenomena and therefore they are empty of self-nature, that is something we can comprehend. But then often when it's with two people, just two people, then we still think that we are separate individuals. All those people who have realized actually that have realized non-duality or the nature of the mind, they will recognize that there are only two bodies, but there are not two minds. Our mind is non-dual. Or we say there's Buddhas and there are sentient beings, but actually their minds have a single basis. One who understands that understands the actual view, which is the non-duality of the mind. Or for example, it's like having two vases that are filled with emptiness, basically, and the emptiness in both vases is the same. So this is how we should understand non-duality.
Next question. When a person dies, we usually send their names to gurus. If the person was not a Buddhist, is that still helpful?
남바면 디 비자야 고대 하고 그래 서아 남바 선 노로 남도 주야미 사지 좀니这个 성마도 고조 참인 뭘 심지 남은 상지 심지 요는 속차 정지 정이 감심지가 감심세계 샘들이 좋아해 니요 말에 소화도 뭐라고 저가리 네 대신 좀 공유배 들이 제라들이 설로를 지는데 설참라 근데 난 대신 좀 요래 고도 상지 심지 남은 상지 이제 되게서 말해야지 그래서 로를 지 박차사 평가되니 로를 도리 대사 꼬라 잡게 요리디 탁탁 들리고서 니요 말이지 상지 심지 니요 말 사와나 뭐 니요 말이지 탁탁 그리고서
So that is an excellent question, and something that you should really understand. And so these concepts of being a Buddhist or not being a Buddhist is a temporary construct that we have fabricated in our own mind that doesn't actually exist. The Buddha actually said it in one line that really encompasses everything. He said all sentient beings are actually Buddhas. So all beings with a body or without a body, all beings of the three realms of samsara, the three planes of existence, even though there are many, they have all a single mind. There's no two minds. They are not separate. It is just that we fabricate separations in our minds. But all beings are one on the basis of Buddha nature. And temporarily, this nature is obscured. And when this obscuration is being dispelled, then the inner Buddha nature that is Buddha will reveal itself. And that is what the Buddha means by saying that all beings are actually Buddhas. It is just now we are obscured by karmic patterns, and as a result of these obscurations, we have to wander in the 6 realms of samsara for some time. But ultimately, we are still non-dual. All sentient beings. There's no self and other, or Buddhist or non-Buddhist. So also those who were so-called non-Buddhist, for whoever we pray, they will also attain liberation.
네, 많이 딱 봐서 상당히 죽어요. 이제 동네들이 내가 가리리 내력도는 제가 고르면 로치남야서만 이제 뭐라be 시합도 팔아도서만 가리 나는 세부 내력도고 세부 내력을 고아차고 왔다 이제 서가 나와 샘님이 하고 그래 참에 대리를 고아차고 세부 내력도 남산하고 또 그래 하고 들어오면 막 차라들이나 유모가 대도 참아 연거래 요 샘님이가 하고 또 그래 내력도 그들이 대개들이 시합도 팔아도서만 내력도 팔는 시합사가 로는 메라스 배서 말해야지 그밥만 먹게 되니 너무 오래 되는 말이 받고 그래야지.
So there's something that we always actually say, we always express verbally, but what is the actual meaning of that? So that is, Longchen Rabcham, for example, he said that there is no higher learning than realizing the natural state of the mind. And Milarepa also said, when explaining the paramitas, he said, aside from realizing the nature of the mind, there is no other perfection of wisdom than that. So that line actually also really takes care of this entire issue. So when we understand that there are no Buddhist or not non-Buddhist, there is no duality in the mind. We're not separate in the mind. Anyone who realizes the nature of the mind will immediately understand that. So it is just because of temporary karmic imprints that we develop all kinds of afflictive emotions and experiences of happiness and suffering. But at the same time, in the mind, there is still no duality. So Milarepa had said, there is no, aside from realizing the nature of the mind, there is no other perfection of wisdom than that. And there are many more quotations by different Khenpos, but actually, just this one quote by Milarepa actually is sufficient.
Next question. I was in a car accident and noticed as the car was going to tip over, I said, no, no, no. How can we train only to keep our mind on the Guru in such traumatic events or at the time of death?
가야고. 디감이 라마다 여당 상제 가리 괜찮아 이제대로 저템로 그래 뭐라도 저거 답지 답하자 그래 매수는 샘내놓고 계시요 말이 저거 시바도 왔다 그래 내놓고 이렇게 줘버렸다 라마 뒤상제 뒤주는 라마 샘다 상제 샘당 랑게 대시 좀 찍고 찍자네 내가 대시 좀 뭐도로 뭐 공들면 도로 파비스를 먹지라면 대박 그래 대변 나치네 나발에 대박 남상 대박 그래 대변을 오늘 남당들이 랑게 시합과 도구들이 다르지 라만 사제들이 탐나 들지 깝들더니 저트바 인연을 똑같이로 뺏겠다 그래 타요 그래 생골 계시배와 하고 그래 라리 소디면은 강가 죽은 종이 장성의 뒤라 양당한테 삶아서 라리 소디면 참말 요래다.
Whoever you can remember that time, whether it is the Guru or the Yidam or the Buddha, you will merge with their mind. The natural state of your mind merges with them, and your body or the car and so on is nothing but just a pile of dust, and the body will die anyways. Everything is impermanent, like a dewdrop on a blade of grass. But the mind is one with the Guru's mind. Your own Buddha nature is one with the mind of the Buddha. And the body is just like a pair of clothing that you will take off, and then the mind goes on. And the mind must be led by faith. So if you have that on an ongoing basis, then immediately you will be able to remember faith or devotion to the Guru. And through the power of your innate wisdom within yourself, you are able to remember the Guru or the Buddha. And if you're able to remember, then it is just like 2 drops of water merging into one, and you attain liberation. And because the mind transcends birth and death, the mind goes on. In the 37 practices, in the very beginning, it says, they have realized that phenomena neither come nor go. Now think about this again and again. Actually, everything is again included in the 37 practices.
Next question. My children's father died due to drugs and alcohol. My 24-year-old son is presently undergoing treatment to quit drugs and alcohol. My 21-year-old son also uses alcohol and drugs and threatened me with death. I quit drugs and alcohol and took a vow of celibacy 15 years ago, yet despite my efforts, I continue to suffer the negative effects of my karma. What should I practice? What can I do for my children?
Ini tanda kurang dimensi segi usari. Ini pu nisho cacik ciore. Dia yang arah dan taman apa tengido. Ini kacang kong kerang segi ingin lapsong. Pudi amalara. Ini mo ngema taman apa dina. Ini arah tunggu yo. Ini yang ditam shona lo chunga ro sabare. Ini changju gitu apa yang lo chunga ngun la shubayin. Ini yang tina lo mambo dina kala mambo kaya ina yang ini tarong leng apa tahu ming do yore. Ini kare ina.
오, 보고대 그런 그들 내그런 로요 잡지 무슨 저라지야 요 말이 맞다 또 삼절랑 레그 둘이 적기가 그냥 메시지 줘요리 그래서 레그 삼시제지 제제서 좀레제 다랑이 제리 탐도도 많아지 돈 마시 봐도 다 토바자 가리 단딘 빵 인핑 로제 다 토고 도바테리 사토서 일 피고 상티 로지 거는데 가디나 신의 샤와서 맞제고지 지로지 정도는 산축선데 사바체미공 되는 저기 딱지 맞다 고서 돌아가는 봐서 레좀 거 럽상 주야요 말이지 들이서보다는 이래놓고도 세드셔야요 말이 그냥 핀셈제가 고서 중서지 나지 돌아오래 나지 삼지를 쳐로래 너로 삼지 기지버리 조금 가르쳐는 삼지공 사바체미하는데 이 사제지 치즈 삼신제마다 취해 대처럼 저거 괜히 말이요 맞다발 참을 찌아도 되는 나 괜히래시 알고 조선 차거도 상한 거 선받지 못지 내자.
So that your children have their own karma. They have to follow their own karma. So you can't really fix everything. And especially this particular karma of drinking and alcohol will lead to birth as an animal. And that is the path of karma that they go. And you should cultivate love and compassion for them. You have taken a vow of celibacy. And so what is the ultimate vow that we take? All vows ultimately come down to abandoning self-grasping and cultivating an altruistic mind. So thinking only about the welfare of others. And in this way, holding on to bodhicitta. So don't analyze the situation too much and just know it is their karma and meditate on immeasurable love. If their conduct is really negative, it is because of their karma and we can't always fix that right away. And their mind also cannot die. So what will really help them is if you sustain a mind of altruism, because that is what will melt the ice block of self-grasping. So don't think that of their faults, that something is wrong with them. Just cultivate love and compassion for them. Remember the Buddha and the Dharma. Actually, love and compassion, if you remember love and compassion, that is the Dharma. And think that my body is the Sangha. I love everyone, that's why, therefore I am the Sangha. The three jewels are complete within me. And so in this way, try to stay happy.
Next question. How can I deal with loneliness and a longing to be with someone? How can I deal with the fear of being hurt and rejected while a part of me yearns for love and warmth?
로바 메지데 빼야버리시. 로바 거는 자라 메베 버거는 끼니적으로 꽉채돼. 부모거는 제대로만 꽉채돼. 되게 챈데도 받아서는 가지서는 들린 자와요 말이. 로바 메네 야가요. pero 가리를 쫑상 어디 니 손데 로바 요르지. 강이 가려도 대ህ는 찌는 로바 메가 담지 쫑스 오 로보지 요리 쫑만 보여래. 다치 쫑만 보여. 로바 나 메네 야가래디 쪼고지 대고래. 로바 요거는 로바지 요바 요 메베 등이 요베 용띠 주지냐 쪼고서 야고서 사바도 hin지 되고래. 딱 쪼고면 왜 야가래시. 셔르시마타들이 포고는 끼리도 뭐는 제대로만 요리서 라밀티 요리디랑 생각냠도 요리디 끼리들이 제대로만 소화사지 라마 요리디 쪼고면 라마 요리디.
So you can think that now if I don't have a companion, then that's the best, because my real companion are Chenrezig and Tara, with whom I'm never separate. So it depends if you're male or female, then you just applicate to Chenrezig or to Tara. And these deities really will never separate from you in this life, in future lives, and in the bardo. So think that if I do not have a companion, it's much better. Because if you have a companion, then you have qualities and faults both coming together. If you have a companion, there are a lot of problems all the time. So think that when you do not have a companion, then think about the faults of having a companion, and think that it's better not to have one and just be happy. But if you do have a companion, then don't think about the faults of having a companion. Then you should think about the qualities of having that companion, and think that now it is good to have this companion. Now I can practice love and compassion, and see them as Chinrezig or Tara, and then even after I have died, I will remain inseparable from Chinrezig and Tara, because they will go together with my mind. So I basically pray to either Chinrezig or Tara. And generally speaking, it's better not to have a companion, because then you have your freedom.
Next question. It's hard for me to meditate because of work and mundane activities. I've been practicing meditation for a few years, but my mind is still distracted and I cannot focus. What is the most effective approach?
내가 제법 가면 따고 내가 제시 봐요 지래지. 제시 봐요 될 제시 봐요 내가 제법 가면 공대로 공 약속 되지 온 거래지. 따와 하고 고만이 앞서리 좁아를 내가 참아 좁아래지. 뒤가로 차당도 봐 하. 가르쳐고 때 하고를 들지 하고를 들지. 뒤가로 공자를 때를 고바 쫄람다서 공가 내가 이걸 빼야 볼 내가 같이 세지 신만이 보는 제데. 이제 공을 제발비가 차도래지.
So while you're doing these activities, you should engage in these activities with mindfulness and heedfulness. And actually, if you engage in mundane activities with mindfulness, then this is actually how the best meditation arises. So first, you understand the view, and then you engage in meditation practice. But ultimately, we have to bring this experience gained in meditation into our day-to-day conduct. That is all of our activities, our mundane activities. So during all your activities, recognize all the thoughts arising in the mind, all the emotions of attachment and anger and so forth. And when they arise, immediately meditate. So this is what is meant by saying that we have to merge the meditation with the day-to-day conduct. And so think that from this perspective, it's even better. It's good that I have to engage in mundane activities, because this is where I can actually practice without distraction. So try to sustain a state of non-distraction during all of your activities, and then the activities themselves will become meditation.
Next question. I live in a monastery and have been bullied by other people there. How should I view the situation, and how should I respond with wisdom and compassion?
오, 니비디 라린 소디만 송어리디 리디 니바티랑 가자 차노리 니바디 빼야고요리 또르마가 메나가데 메나나 좀 텔라베 또는 가자 큰데 베스 역시 답답되지 주만 패도리 오다 사들 도고도 주바 공사들이 냠니 탐세는 주바다고 같은 메시 이제 주바데 요즘 배차요 강이 가는 데는 주바가 없어서 드리트 샘디 야도로 그러지 주바데 상초선 뭐 세게 놓는다고 그래 주바데 세다고 차도를 들면데 주바 바로도 신고래지 세상 제일 맨날 주바 살고 온지 복담배래지
This is also explained in the 37 Bodhisattva practices. So actually, when we are humiliated or mistreated, then we are losing our pride. So actually, we should think that being put down actually is a good thing. It's actually this quote that says, "I do not wish to be praised, I wish to be blamed, because when I'm praised, my afflictive emotions increase or remain hidden, and when I'm blamed, then I can increase my patience." So in all of these activities, we can practice patience, and patience is really the essence of all practice. Therefore, it is said there is no greater austerity than patience. Patience is the best practice, because if you cultivate patience, all your other qualities will increase. And so I think that this is an excellent opportunity to practice patience, and then your mind will actually improve or develop. And patience is like a golden vessel that needs to contain the milk of bodhicitta. It supports your practice of bodhicitta. So most important is to perfect the paramita of patience. And also there's this Tibetan saying, it says, if there is no one who makes you angry, then who will you practice patience with? Your best friend is the 37 Bodhisattva practices. Everything is in there. Any solution or advice is in there.
Thank you.
Next question. I'm a young man and I have trouble controlling my sexual desire despite meditation. I'm afraid to ask such a question face to anyone, so I've been suffering in silence. Dharma has helped me greatly, but at times I still slip back into the same suffering of sexual desire, which is discouraging. Please give me some guidance.
So generally speaking, when we have not realized the nature of the afflictive emotions, then they are poison. But when we realize their nature, then they are primordial wisdom. When strong desire arises, actually the bliss that arises along with this desire actually is a quality, an aspect of your own mind. It is the blissful nature of your own mind. And bliss arises when the ordinary thoughts stop and you come to the fundamental basis of the mind. Then you experience bliss, and that's the actual bliss. You just need to recognize that the bliss is not contingent on an outer force, but is actually inherent to your own true nature. So according to the Buddhist view, this is the ultimate nature of the bliss that arises due to desire, because it brings you to the natural state of the mind. You must only recognize then that this bliss is not separate from you. So we think that it arises due to an outer condition like a companion and so on, but in reality it is the quality of your own mind. It is your innate nature. And when you meditate, you recognize that, and so therefore you should make an effort in meditation. So then you come to realize your true nature is bliss, and that actually, since it is your true nature, it is unchanging bliss. In the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says the happiness of the samsaric realms is as fleeting as a dewdrop on the tip of a blade of grass. So you should rather, therefore, strive toward never-changing liberation, which is the never-changing bliss. And that is your true nature, and you recognize it through meditation practice. So what you should do is merge that desire that arises with meditation, and then recognize that the bliss that is generated through the desire is actually your own true nature.
Next question. What is the process of generating the bindus, nadis, and prana at rebirth?
다 long 틀리더라. 저거 요와 대리 요와 시선이더니 자 저거 상어 롱롱 그거 상어 특히 저거 상어 라고 저거로 창게 요리 데이터가 있는데 데이터 나로 주로 거는 또 먹고 또 먹고 양용 계제들이 라마티네 테기르지 그것은 상하고 특별히 데이터다 loktum chant ki shode to bonam nin dere naw churu gret
ngabe gebal lempe kaploro bena bugo chape kaploro ni bugo tapu lü ngabe gegero ni chalong tikle gegero so kilo khande do
대체로 체력을 잡고 가리 지금 다뭐 가리 착해 참아 빠잡자리 데렸다지 이제 박차가 제게 요래 박차당이네 되니 그리다다 소남 박차대서는 머리 덮고요. 때문에 로가를 가요. 대참아 때래 총총을 짜로 되게 참아요. 요래 쏙 차려니 같이 잡지 그래. 이제 살롱 되게 요래 뒤지 그래 요매하고 말이 그냥 체력이 쉽다 하는데 때마다 라나가 살롱 되게 되지 카나 때들이 짜쪽어야 될 롱롱 그 되게 죽어서 놀았다가 삼삼 대화요 완디 랑 감틀리지 대화이 봐 하고 그래 랑 대화이 봐 하고 그래 제법값들이 파만 이랬더니 되게 랑 그랬대 지는다니 저도 시작이 요래지 이제 당보 잘 들까네 샘 코랑들이 다른 데서 미워래 생내들 디엠나를 배송도 같이 뭐또 말 죽어대 생남도 매 생들 죽어 상우리지 딜 생들 생포랑 나시 대화치 보여 딜 온거 상우리지 딜이 싸고 하고 시리 생면 내록도 되게 딜 죽어야 되네 내록 하방을 죽었대 하방을 딜이다 죽어다 놓고지가 랩로 요리 하고 요말이 뒤에서 무시발 딜 생면 내록도 봐지 내록도로 데이터 마도로 대삼제도 생각 내록도로 데이터 처럼 탐색 구성 그런 일 하고 요래 다 하고 그러는 거 따랑장 공부를 다 저거 하고 오면 이제 파대랑 나와지는 데 어때래 하고 요래
So the channels, winds, and the drops are within our body, but we don't actually normally recognize them. and they are related to the 3 kayas. So they are like the seeds of the 3 kayas. The channels are the seeds of the Nirmana kaya, the winds are the seeds of the Sambhoga kaya, and the drops are the seeds of the Dharma kaya. And we actualize their nature mainly through the practice of Tummo, which is a practice belonging to the 6 yogas of Naropa, or practicing the 6 yogas of Naropa and mainly Tummo, and relying on a guru, and thereby then recognizing that the channels, winds, and drops are the natural light of the 3 kayas. And so to recognize their nature, most importantly, we engage in a 3-year retreat. That's why the 3-year retreat is important, where we practice Tummo, the other 6 yogas of Naropa. In terms of how they come about when we take rebirth, it's more a question related to how we take rebirth. So here you have to maybe ask a scientist how are babies made, and how do they arise, and how do how's the body grow, and so on. I'm not so sure about that, but generally speaking, when we have the imprint of merit in our mind, then it begins with the mind. And if we have the imprint of merit in our mind, then we take a precious human body, and if not, then we are born anywhere else in the 6 realms of samsara. But generally speaking, all beings who are born through a womb, they all actually possess channels, winds, and drops. But I don't know how they exactly start to grow. It's more of a scientific question. But it is still related when I look at my own body. So the channels are the Nirmana kaya, the winds, the Sambhoga kaya, and the drops, the Dharma kaya. And that's also related to the bliss that we experience. Then when we experience bliss through the drops, then we must recognize that this bliss is the innate bliss of our true nature, not separate from ourselves. And so this is now from a Dharma perspective, and it might be related to the scientific response to that. But basically, from our perspective, from the Buddhist perspective, it all begins first in the mind. And Milarepa actually explained that too, when he explained the channels, winds, and drops. And he said that this mental quality of non-conceptuality is the Dharma kaya, which is the mind that is free of all thinking. And then the greatly blissful nature of the mind itself is the Sambhoga kaya. And then the clear knowing mind is the Nirmana kaya. And so it's because we do not clearly know the mind, we have not recognized our true nature, that the Dharma kaya and Sambhoga kaya both remain obscure, so we don't recognize them. So therefore, to recognize them, we must understand the nature of our mind, realize the nature of the mind, and then you will naturally understand the nature of the 3 kayas. And in order to understand it now, we have to engage in meditation practice. We have to train in those practices of channels, winds, and drops. And when you really train in them, then an understanding of all this will naturally arise.
납시들이 서로 여지 다지니 하고 니지 요래지 다 도출이 다 싸와들 가리 싸와들 라르랑 싸들 라게내로 또네 라게내로 또 다지니 메와 하고 그래 제가 싸와 쪼거지 다지니 메와 하고 다시 쪼거 차들지 여기 이동제 두고 요래지 다지니는 요리도 되들이 타말반도 다 차디 요래 싸와들 라르랑 싸우고 그때 나부터 하자 기치버리 심지 토려가지 대리는 산지에 말 심지 고방 장고도 잡아 말하는 소화지 세부대로 마도 딜들이 심지성 심지의 다진인 항지래 이 하자 기치 보여래. 이 책도 좀 동거래지.
So this is quite important actually, and so Milarepa had said when there is clarity, from clarity arises the nirmanakaya. So we all possess non-conceptuality, the non-conceptual mind, and also bliss. But what we do not have is the clarity. And because we lack clarity, we do not recognize the nature of our mind, or the so-called view, because the mind is unclear. And when the mind is unclear, we call it the ordinary, the dualistic consciousness. So that's someone who has not realized the nature of the mind. And so the consciousness is projected outward and discerns outer objects and perceives the world as self-other duality. So what is this clarity? Clarity means that you clearly see your own true nature. It's the self-knowing awareness. When you see your own true nature, that is when you realize non-duality. So from non-duality arises the nirmanakaya, and therefore we say that nirmanakaya is the one who engages in the benefit of sentient beings. Now ordinarily, what makes us ordinary is our dualistic perception of me and others. Clarity means to see that there is no duality. And you see that when you see your own true nature. You see it through this naturally luminous, clear awareness. And that is the nirmanakaya within your mind. So that's very important. In a Samantabhadra prayer, it says, when you recognize it, you are a Buddha. Not recognizing it, you are a sentient being wandering in samsara. So this recognizing it is the basis, the nature of the mind. When we do not recognize it, we are called a sentient being. A sentient being is someone who perceives a dualistic existence of self and other. So that's very important. You should think about these words.
I've heard the statement, the Dharma is not therapy. Do Dharma and therapy complement each other? Are they distinct? When practicing Buddhism, I notice similarities in both methods, but I wonder whether the Dharma is beneficial for certain things and therapy for others. Could you please explain?
Dini yina yang tapshi kashan rabo re thongudo. Pena sem MG ki tapshi dini nangju tapshi. Dini koni chikpa reves, yani koni pena nangju kashi la yaku yore, dini MG di kashi la yaku yore, kandya dabo to kono kaka reve chikpa re.
Jitang sawa nangma nije mende cha yore. Dung re gatene mengi jat deri yore, sawa nangma cheban deri. Cha dina 다지 세고 내려고 한 세고 내려고 마도 되게 서로를 여진 나와더라 여진 나봐 시바서 납시 차송 되게 다 서로 봐지 랑그 내려고 또나 선왕이 요매 대리는 상제 되고지라고 상제 갈라도 다다는 남카를 버르지 사원지 사제들 그런지 대 말이 랑그 세고 내려고 될 쳤대나 상대는 나진이 가까이 사비 로지가 것도 못 차대요래. 이리들이 좀 먹거든. 들어보고 먹거래. 샘 코랑도 나진이 무덕선은 별로 보고 피더니나. 많이 샘 뭐로도 봐도 샘이 무덕선은. 들이 이디 상소는 상제래. 이디면서 샘 남과는 차들이. 그 남과 자치부 차지. 예들은 샘도 남과 체비바 되게 차도래. 따라 고아지어다데 생나파나 이래지 하고 요래 들 공수 리서는 들 나고 용 뒤사만 요래 들 소하는 거 멘들들이 잘해 내력시 내력도다 마도 제발 내력도로 상제해 내는 상제해 많이 생각가 말이지 들 생각 봐야 될 생나파도 자들이 다 상제 것을 와지 다 다른 통으로 와지 생각을 상제해도 수당 상제를 인도 통으로 됐다고 해야 돼
same empty color.
same empty that sawa the namba ko tini yong yo re same empty the sawa namba mini yo ra je sawa da namba ni che ba tini yong yo ra sawa da namba ni yong je same empty tam je de na de men ge ton ro go na se de na o so ro ji namba chi ba so na nang de na same ne ro to ta na same kong na de da da na ta se bu na ta ra ma ni ji na de ni mo de le dan de de 강에 만건 제가 요래 세고 나사데 셈은 봐 쪽으로 되게 나사서 요래 셈은 봐 면은 나사 용어 또 말이 베르테 내가 할때 생광을 라면은 사는 봐 레드 변 하고 아 타마디 생고 내려도 도마도 제발 레드 내로 또 남바들 남바 가르치지 랑그 생고 랑그 생고 내로 또 어서 보이나 때 남바지 랑그 생고 내로 마도 다지니 가까이는 통수는 내리더니 어서 요지 남바다 또 사와지 스로바디 사와 남바니 다톡 그 저거들 사와 남바니 제발 때 들이 종료 살해야 돼 되게 고아래야 돼 그럼
So it seems that not here we actually come to the basis of like outer and inner. So in other words, like inner is actually the word for a Buddhist in Tibetan. It's called inner. And so then somebody who is not a Buddhist then would be outer. So this is where this duality then comes about. Like one is like a therapist, like the outer, and one is the Buddhist practitioner, the inner. So it's like the outer and the inner. And so basically it comes back to having or not having realized the nature of the mind. So if we have not realized the nature of the mind, then we are focused outward. Consciousness discerns outer objects. So then we are outer. And when we realize the nature of the mind, we can say we are inner because we recognize the inner nature of the mind. So attaining the state of Buddhahood doesn't mean that one develop some kind of miracles and can fly in the sky or go through the rocks and earth and so on. But it means that you know the nature of the mind. And so when you look at your mind, so this term Buddha in Tibetan means Sangye, and Sang means to have cleared away. So when you look at your mind, then and you see your true nature, then the dualistic thoughts of self and other are cleared away. And normally, it is because we cling to the existence of a duality that we become very narrow-minded, which is just like also similar to wearing very thick clothing. When you realize non-duality, and you look at your mind, you're together with your companion, you will recognize that we are like two vessels, but our minds are one and the same, they're not separate. So this realization clears away dualistic thinking, and then the mind becomes vast like space, which is the second syllable gye in Sangye. So then you realize the mind becomes vast, extensive like space. And from that space like mind that you have realized, all other qualities will actually arise. So it is just a difference in having or not having understood the true nature of the mind. This is where this difference comes about. So when one, so therefore we can say that a doctor who does therapy, right, who only focuses on outer objects would be focused outward with their consciousness. And if it's someone who has realized the nature of the mind, then there would be someone focusing inward. But it's still the same basis of the mind. There's no difference. So basically, all of our mental diseases also arise from this dualistic grasping, from fixating on the dualistic reality of self and other, and also past karmas that we have created that leads to various difficulties in our minds. But in brief, we can say when the mind engages in grasping, it creates a mental sickness. And if we do not grasp, then there is no basis to experience any sickness. So therefore, when whoever just knows the nature of the mind, is so called a Buddhist or an inner, called it inner. And who has not realized the nature of the mind sees self and other as separate, so is an outer, meaning a consciousness that projects outward and only discerns outer objects. So in my opinion, that is the only difference, and that is why there's a difference being made between outer and inner, when actually it all arises really from the same basis.
Next question. I have taken 3.5 years off work to practice and listen to Dharma teachings. I'm now at a crossroads and don't know which way to go. I could enter the monastic path, go on a 3-year retreat, or return to work until my mind is more prepared to be ordained, or do a 3-year retreat in the future. Can Rinpoche please give some guidance?
당보 로섬 창을 내려 가래 제거도지 그게 두분 상태를 제바제 소장제 이 저 로섬 창을 내려고 요래 로섬 창에 내터 가래도 로섬 창을 가래 제거도 같이 제거래 창을 내 찾은가 트이셔대 말이지 내 두분이 제대로라는 소주 두분 gembanyo batele chama shori tena losom khani de go do san losom chan ya ga yores.
So if you want to do a 3-year retreat, then before you do that, you should actually really inform yourself of what that actually means, what does this entail, what do I do in a 3-year retreat, and so on. So you should ask a Drupa and a retreat master, connect to them, and inquire about the nature of a 3-year retreat and really learn about it. But then in general, it would be good to do a 3-year retreat. But you can't just go into 3-year retreat and only once you're there start asking the questions. But you should inform yourself before you go into a 3-year retreat, for example, by asking Rupa and Rinchen Dorje and so forth, just about what that actually entails. But so generally speaking, it would be better to do a 3-year retreat.
Next question. In the Yamataka Sadhana, it says the 8 classes of gods and demons are bound into servitude. Does this mean taming the mind?
네, 사실 집지 탐체는 네 갑로버 도망 뉴모 발이 정말이 난 뉴모 왕도 나는 그 사실 집지 왕도 요래 베스타버리 다다 가서 이제 띵바데 내가 저기 봐는 이제 대신 좀 먹어서 대신 좀 뭐 참아요 요래 돼요래 내가 저기 맞대 남을 하고 로를 나서서 와 대비 사실 집지 되게 차요래 사실 왕도 너거나 랑가 따와게 뉴모 같은 저 왕도 사실 이제 왕도 요래서.
So those 8 classes of gods and demons are manifestations of temporary stains. They arise from the afflictive emotions. And therefore, when we tame our afflictive emotions, then we also tame those 8 classes of gods and demons. Now, temporarily, they appear as worldly beings, but they also possess Buddha nature, fundamentally. And just temporarily, they have given rise to different thoughts, afflictive emotions, and that led to them manifesting as the 8 classes of gods and demons. So if one wants to subdue those gods and demons, one does so through the view. Through the view, you subdue your own afflictive emotions, and when they are subdued, then the 8 classes of gods and demons are subdued.
Next question. What is co-emergent ignorance co-emergent with? If it is self-grasping, what is the difference between ignorance and self-grasping?
Marikpa Sungyarava, Lenchikiba. And if Lenchikiba Kunyamdo Kigi Sungyarava, the Marikpa the Karen Yamdo Kigi those, the dancing Yina, then it dancing down Marikpa Kiba Kare.
Same Nero Marikpa Nila Ngao Yavatri Dacha. Now, Yamadi. There is 7 Nero Tona, Daji Yomarit, some Nankana, child, there's a Daji Yomarit. The Nero Mato to the Marikpa, Hitikibadi, certain Tom, told me, when Rakandana, dreaming of some tongue to go, dreaming Rakandana, tongue to go. The Nero told the Yontima was Hoya or Destiny with the Hoya or Desum or it. They told them, that is a kind of sugar. That's something sugar. Temi of a sugar, Temi Jordan, Samba sugar. That Paxas was there. She said, Temi of sugar. The way to San took some that Mazana, the destiny won't talk to my theory. So something that's over here.
So this co-emergent ignorance, it means it refers to the founder.
He give a man Chagrom rich. Took them to Chagrom did Chagrom the mark by the way that the Chagrom Dodor, the mark by car doctor. Chagrom Shasson, Dati Charlie Chesson, Nimaki, Shasson, Dati the Chipari, Santok said, Danzi Mina, the Sanji the Chipari. He did you about the Nazi mark, Kakayo married.
So the co-emergent ignorance, it really means an innate ignorance that is a fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of the mind. And because of that, we perceive a me. And so the I begins to exist. And when one realizes the nature of the mind, one realizes that this I does not actually exist. There is no self and other. The mind just becomes like space, where there is no self and other. So this co-emergent might be better translated as innate. So it is something that something that's innate that you don't actually innate to you that you don't actually see. So, for example, if you turn on the light in a temple, then you can see all the objects in the temple. But if you don't turn on the light, you won't see anything, but the objects are still there. Likewise, when you realize the nature of the mind, then the qualities of Buddha nature, the many qualities, will reveal themselves, the innate qualities. So the root of not seeing is the self. So therefore we must destroy the self. And we destroy the self through the four immeasurables, especially immeasurable love. The self is a very thick imprint that must be destroyed through bodhicitta. If it is not, then there is no way we can see the true nature of our Buddha nature. So most importantly, we need love and compassion. So this co-emergent so-called ignorance is like kind of makes the mind to be like ice, like an ice block. So then you have this solid thing of ignorance. And so where is this ignorance? What is it really? When this self melts, this idea of a self melts through the sun, then it becomes one with the ocean water. And then where is it then? Then it's nowhere. It doesn't really exist to begin with. So then there is no more self-grasping. And so co-emergent really means it is together with you. So it's innate to you. It's not something separate from you.
Next question. If the afflictions are really wisdom, what is being washed out in Vajrasattva practice?
Oh, you mama ishi yimi rana le. You mama ishi riba sheng de mere de sheki yore. Sheng de mere tolu mere juji yore de di kere. You mere jota munjo rana ta gore. Rana ni mama jeba kapse sheng de lo to te da. Ne lo ta ni mama ishi yona. You mama choa me ba do. O te ishi ranga ha ko to gore. 이게 시에서 소요래 대 주지시요래 생담했다 그래야지. 대 주바가 그래 다 뭔가 주바를 세우고 그래 조랑 거 가면 들이 하고 그래야지.
So whether or not afflictions are wisdom depends on yourself. It is just like what we are saying, that wood is fire. That is, if wood encounters fire, it becomes fire, then it is fire. But whether or not it actually becomes fire, not in your own mind, you have to see for yourself when an afflictive emotion arises. So when an afflictive emotion arises and it is released without leaving any feeling, any sensation of it behind, then you can understand this affliction to have become wisdom. So then you can say the affliction is really wisdom. So that is what others say when they say afflictions are wisdom, but we also have to actualize that for ourselves in our own mind. So it is just like saying that wood is fire. And so it is also what is meant with now merging the experience gained in meditation, the view in meditation, with our day-to-day conduct. So that is something that needs to be understood during the day-to-day conduct.
Next question. In my experience, practitioners can receive great benefits from deity practice without having had the empowerment, but often it is said that you must have the empowerment to get benefits. What is your view on this?
내lok도 될 강사 했나? 왕수는 맞으나더니 르바라랑 탑들 강사도 있나? 왕수도 맞을 제반 매매 되면 왕대 어두를 왕수고 요래 왕대 왕지 맞지 당원 상족템 주의진 제용 요래 그래서 상족템 주의도 맞으나 그냥 저랑 한번 박차 계속 변나 대양 럼바슴 럼지와 직결와 송송고 요래 양 한번 박차 세들 같이 왕수하고 왔던 거 요래
So someone, it depends on the kind of individual. If one is a person who has realized the nature of the mind, then they might not need to receive an empowerment. So it's someone who has attained, meaning someone who has attained complete autonomy of awareness, freedom of awareness. For them it might make no difference whether or not they receive an empowerment. But for anyone else in general, an empowerment is an introduction, and therefore we should receive an empowerment. And through this introduction, we connect to bodhicitta, and that is necessary. So unless some people, they do bring an imprint with them from previous lives, that's why we say there is those who realize instantaneously and those who realize gradually. So some who instantaneously realize may not have a need to receive an empowerment.
왕 잡타봐 왕 동심묘 강리들 주를 다원 나한테 주 르는 잡아 셔자는 잡아 난 세는 나를 잡아서 우나 데려 왕쇼고 대 잡아서 시키라 난 세고 잡아 시키라 사족선 설리지 잡아 시키라 사이거 셔자인 잡아 시키라 나 대바 나 대서 고다 뭐 왕쇼다 고다 뭐고 라는 나 있으면 잡아 요비를 따고래 랑에서 잡아 찍다면은 따도들이 될 가다 때때 왕 마주나 따르게 요래지 따도래.
So there may be 100 different empowerments, same three meanings. And so that is, first of all, on the outer level, we have a fixation to our physical body. And then we also grasp at the outer sounds that we hear and the inner thoughts within our mind. So if we find that we do grasp at form, sound, and thoughts, then there is a need to receive an empowerment. So it depends whether or not you're grasping. And if you do, then the purpose of visualizing the deity during the empowerment is to cut through the grasping at physical form. And then we recite the deity's mantra to cut through the grasping at sound. And we meditate, we look at the nature of the mind to cut through the grasping at our thoughts. So whether or not you need to receive an empowerment, you can know by understanding, do I grasp at body, speech, and mind or not? If there is really no grasping at body, speech, and mind, and you have realized the nature of the mind, then it is okay for you not to receive an empowerment. But so the empowerment is just like soap that kind of washes, it cleanses you. And the thicker our karmic imprints are, the more empowerments we should receive.
왕 저당 고당 뭐 왕은 맨데 하고 거다 당 것이 왕은 민지 왕제요 제 왕주의 진짜 조지지 체제요 대변 것이 마음이 것이나 다시 것이 마음이 호도도라 texana 좋아요 말이 가면 좀 상황 그거 말 제 마음이 바가래 나 저도 마음이 되게 마음이 받을 제 민지 왕들이当심상就是个名，这里律解个名啊，这个名，这把什么的人还有这把的写的，王国的名字有王的，名字王就着自己吃，从这件从这里，这里，高堂不高让个生聚了的呢，人家是这把有没大过来的。
Now, speaking of having or not having to receive, whether or not one should receive an empowerment, first we should understand actually the meaning of the term empowerment. The empowerment is also often referred to as a ripening empowerment, which is then followed by the liberating instructions. So it ripens that which is unripe. For example, like an unripe apple. So if you bite into an unripe apple, is not really edible. It doesn't have any pleasant flavor. So it's unripe. So the mind is in an unripe state because there is a concept of me and I. And the empowerment ripens the mind. First through bodhicitta, then it ripens the body through the generation stage, and the speech through the recitation of the mantra. And so the empowerment ripens our body, speech, and mind by releasing the three kinds of grasping. And then that is followed, the empowerment is followed by the liberating instructions. And so the ripening empowerment and liberating instructions, they go hand in hand. So whether or not you have a need to receive an empowerment, you cannot know by looking at whether or not you do have grasping at body, speech, and mind.
Next question. How does a yogi learn to guard his mind most effectively and not fall under the sway of deceptive, self-clinging emotions such as disappointment, depression, and anxiety? How do I lift myself and others up rather than let them drag me down?
당진한 제가 기념몽바 왕도 마셔와 답시 가래 요리스 배나 삼산 샘 밤이야 샘 교야 되니 직난기야 요라 디 참마 당진나 되는 랩기 요리 되니 데라 왕도 마셔와 가래 고도스 되니 디기 잡라 되니 나당 셴디 샘 야덱 라사 야덱 되나 디스 야 소고르와 되니 마 kanna 거리 마살라 땡고요 마라 샘 마사다 샘다 Penangata ko sem tu yun na, tini sem bayang tu yoro ba, tini rangsin ni ka tu yoro ba, tini.
Tela Thomas Jungchok sem ji song da, Jungchok sem ba ji, ba wo zhuo zhu Jungchok se de go yo le, 就是这三节他们就当不上就知道他就话，哦，一人苹果，哪怕要吃的， 신의 피고 가연의 피고 삼리 로도 치보는 there's 산적 섬들이 스승지 땅하람이 새로 떼셔배 말해 레드 습지는 피고 막 강에 가래 좀 상상을 됐고 깝들이들이 루바 연거리 등도 연거리 이제 동네 락을 인터고 다 조인이 있는데 다 줘다 근데 강에서 다 조이면 동네 쳐보요래 인조에 맞을더니 다다 동네 총거리 얘는 인지 동네 제들이 산속 셈도 또 산속 셈지 공거리 산속 셈지는 사바sem이 공거리 셈지 잡수나 그래서 셈도 도도 차대 셈도 도도 차대 대 파식이 잡지는 장롱들이 저 잡고는 이 사바sem이 잠보죠 뭐나는 끝나 잡바 삼바하게 또 없어 삼바sem이 없나 이 셈이 som랑 이게 요거요래 이 맞을 루루 차고래 강에 가려는 커터바 차고요래
So first we need to train in bodhicitta and become a bodhisattva. A bodhisattva is like a courageous one, a hero. If you want to become courageous and so not lose heart, you need to have bodhicitta. And that is why all the Buddhas of the 3 times, first and foremost, gave rise to bodhicitta, a wish to benefit others. They had completely let go of the self, of me, and only cared about benefiting others. And so then, as it is said, even if the 3 worlds were to be destroyed, there is no fear. Then you would think that whatever happens to me, it doesn't matter. I must use my body to benefit sentient beings, even if I encounter difficulties. If you have such altruism, patience will arise and courage will arise, fearlessness. You are able to take on the difficulties, the suffering of others. As long as you consider yourself as most important, you will always experience a lot of suffering and much hardships in your mind. If you consider others as more important, then you will definitely suffer less. So first you must cultivate bodhicitta, and within that, most importantly, immeasurable love. So it is immeasurable love that will pervade all other sentient beings. So others who suffer may be like a solid like piece of ice, something that has completely solidified. And if you pervade them with love, that becomes released. And therefore, in the King of Aspiration Prayers for Excellent Conduct, it says, the power of love is the all-pervasive power. And if you cultivate immeasurable love, the other 3 immeasurables will naturally arise. And if love has arisen, the mind will become relaxed and you are able to take on any difficulty.
다다 나버리 럽다 탑제니 맨멘다자 동가요면 머세야 다 탑제데 등이 하얗지는 가니 다 찍고서 다음은 밤에 두고 따서 다음한테 가리는 두고리 사는 들이 샘이 차그럼다고 차들이 차그럼들은 차그럼잖아 장중가 게임이 들이 밤에는 menda자 들이 서랑시자 되지 되도 단지기 중래 토만 레드네 서로는 매일 menda자 속 차서로 menda자도 요 말이 비서 대충에 등이 하고는 대서 샘 등이 말이 다 된다고는 정진 다도 삼들 뒤동는 정을 니네 돈 탐제디 단지기 중래 저 산속sem에 중대리 대살리가 약보려면 탑제리 취지디 가래서는 대삼지 삼바요 사바트기 등을 내가 제로디 취지디 가래 제는 탑제리 핀바다 대와 너무 똑침부요리 가시다 라시자 파수들이 럽다서면은 되지 단지기 중이지.
And so, for example, nowadays there have been some shootings in schools in the world, and just meaninglessly, really, people are being killed, and there's a lot of suffering, and so this also comes the one who kills others, who shoots others, they themselves suffer greatly to begin with, and that starts with self-clinging. So there is this strong sense of me, and then they think, maybe first they think that, oh, my parents have abused me in the past, and then this is bad and that is bad, and everything is just gone wrong in my life. And so their mind freezes more and more into an ice block. So it solidifies more and more until the ice block cracks. And then they become mindless and take up a gun and kill many people, and then even kill themselves. So all of that is the fault of self-grasping. If someone understands that, for example, someone understands karma to begin with, and understands altruism, then leave alone killing people. They wouldn't want to kill even an animal. They wouldn't want to kill anyone because they would understand the suffering that others then experience. So in the 37 practices, it says all suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. So it is because they only think about themselves that they experience so much suffering. So all faults really come from self-grasping. All these issues that we hear about, all these suffering that we hear about, all comes down to the fault of self-grasping and the fault of lacking any bodhicitta. On the other hand, someone who does possess bodhicitta, who has a loving mind, whatever they do, whether it is a Dharma activity or a mundane activity, it will naturally become powerful and accomplish the benefit and the happiness of others. So, on the other hand, all the suffering that is being inflicted, such as killing others and then killing oneself and so on, that is all the fault of self-grasping.
세는 동양면 동이 이거도 요리. 오, 가시들 서봐 이제 가리는 로로는 약간 가와 같이 벌 쇼도 요라. 처리 요도 요라. 오, 딜 맞지 로바 요리, 삼대 요리. 이때를 사자 뜻인 미우다지 민족고 요리야. 계속 요리. 삼대의 용디다 나디의 주니가 다 때리. 동네 말이 다데 도리 저도고 사제지 비스면 총 야리 소지면 송대데 집이 대차원이 별세 따로다들 가면 자고 맨부 도로를 자토마와 오 집이 잘 다쳐버리고 그렇고 라시 dak을 뜻이 대답이 돈을 레좀 대바시리 중요했지.
So how is it that those who have very strong self-grasping always suffer? It is just like when there is a lot of self-grasping, the mind becomes like cold weather. It's like it's getting very cold, like in winter, and it snows, and the more it snows, the more snow builds up. So like then you have a snow pile as big as a house, and that is because they always think about me all the time, and in the end, they are unable to carry that load and even commit suicide. So even though we can't see our mind, their mind becomes very heavy. And then there's others who have an altruistic mind and who are always relaxed no matter what's happening. And that is just like the mind, there has become summer in the mind and all the snow has melted and turned into water, and then the water makes all the trees and the flowers grow. And so such a person is a person with great patience and love for others. So that is the quality of love and the fault of self-grasping. So in the 37 practices say, all suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. The perfect Buddhas arise from an altruistic mind. So if one just has at least some altruism, then one would certainly not kill or shoot children in a school, leave alone that, but one wouldn't even want to kill an animal because there's altruism. On the other hand, if one has no altruism and only thinks about oneself, one will even commit suicide. So in brief, it is all the fault of not understanding karma.
Last question. Vajrayana practice is often based on visualizations. I'm not able to visualize images, shapes, and colors no matter how hard I try. I've tried to visualize the most basic things many times without success. My mind remains like a dark screen. What is Rinpoche's advice for practicing Vajrayana in this case?
sanga doje tepa nyamen si gona tini mikpa ramen da kom go yore tini nga mikpa kom pe kala kha ko yore spena khato tini yipta manda nga sada thukim dos tini pele labu da chik sada kono yang sada thukim dos sem na thum thom da bor khayan sharge dos tanti tala ti nang shina tini sanga doje tepa nyamen khane
이제 산촉 세민 고소는 다다 책다람리 이제 산촉 쓰는 거 마속 상관없는 자원을 줘야 요 말이 이제 삼재면 자로도 쇼고 자로만 좀 책이 줘도 요 말이 다한테 재미전에 삼바 재미 고소고 그래 계속 뭐더니 나도 나 매번 동안 제가 또 오고 그래 삼재도 말이 나시 요 말이
So it's really just as we just mentioned before, you have to start with cultivating bodhicitta. And without bodhicitta as a basis, you can't really practice the Vajrayana. If you do not have love as the basis, then the ice block will not melt, and then you also can't make use of the water. So first you must cultivate immeasurable love of the four immeasurables, so that self-grasping diminishes. And only then can you really practice the Dharma. So without bodhicitta, you can't really practice the Dharma.
Thank you so much, Your Eminence Garchen Rinpoche, for answering all of these questions. And we will have another question and answer session in a few months, and that will be advertised so everyone has a chance to submit their question if you didn't get yours answered today. And I'd also like to remind everyone to join the puja tomorrow, the Aryatara puja, and Garchen Rinpoche will also perform the Jungchok burning away affliction ritual for the living. So you can submit your names today, still have time to do that, by emailing dedications@garchen.net, and then Khenpo Tenzin will be doing his guided meditation on the 37 Bodhisattva practices tomorrow afternoon as well from 3 to 4. Thank you, everyone.
사소해 되는 게 착각이 요지 다다 상하 도제 특화가 시효리 상하 도제 특화시원 상하는 타도가 생을 내놓게 해요리 도제 특화들 상하 생을 내놓고 하고도 sen 남화 따위 차들 남화를 제시요 말이지 다 도제 창도 대하고도 대 상하라고 요리 상하를 이제 스지가 하고 두고 말이 생을 내놓고 하고들이 용용이 내놓고 또 범두고 요미 대회는 도제 특화 상하가 동제 대 중간에 나지게 콜로 땀는 때 나지는 유모가 도저히 땀통을 대인이 볼다 산촉세 속고도 산촉세 쫓지 버리 대회에 대해서 사바체미 되게 보여리 사바체미 사바테 태우는 담배는 때 저기 야고 차는 고치지를 때저 사바는 이제 오늘 때 고치지도 네 약간 가진 고치를 되더라 삼제 참미 삼제 발라라 가지고 이 삼제 제게도 야다를 띄워요리 약간 가실 띄는 고치디 많은 고소라고도 때까지 이 고소지기 고치 답이 때라고 차도요리 삼지지디 비엔티 셈 삼지 요리인데 참아 자자지 가요리 대사를 로르티 용지 탐지디 상하 도제 지원 타르토가 상하 시바다 세분대로 되고리 세분대로 상하 상들이 상들이랑 상들이 하고 두고 말이 세계가 하고 두고 말이 때 하고서는 들이때 도제 특바들 도제 특바다 도제 장들 센나가 따부터 제 도제 특바래 데리들은 다 상, 너는 삼지 기치모로에 삼바체미 기치모로에 데리 참을 다시 데리죠.
So just about the secret mantra Vajrayana from before. So the ultimate secret mantra of Vajrayana is really the nature of the mind. And whoever knows the nature of the mind becomes like space. And they have realized that the mind transcends birth and death. And that realization is what we call Vajradhara. So whoever understands that is called a Vajrayana practitioner. But it's difficult to understand. Not many have actually realized the nature of the mind. Some have seen the nature of the mind, but they are unable to habituate it. And what is the fault of that? It is self-grasping. It is because we are wrapped up in self-grasping, and self-grasping supports the afflictive emotions. As an antidote, what's most important for us is the relative bodhicitta, which is the mind of immeasurable love. So if you think of it in a mundane sense, even if in a mundane sense in this world, there's, for example, you have a president or a country's leader who possesses some love and compassion, then everyone in this country will be happy and love their leader, and so such a person will also think, may everyone possess love and compassion. And then you have leaders of different countries. When people just hear their names, they get angry, and that is because they do not have any love or altruism for their people. So that is really what's most important for the Vajrayana practice. We need to possess love, and Vajrayana generally means the nature of the mind. So it is called secret mantra, secret because it is actually naturally hidden. No one can naturally easily see it, so that makes it secret. And Vajrayana, because it is Vajradhara by nature, because the Vajrayana is really the natural state of the mind, the space-like nature of the mind. But to recognize that, in brief, what's most important for us is to develop immeasurable love, Vasudelek to everyone. Thank you for your questions.